Hello, my name is Chris. I'm a retired Canadian pharmacist. Welcome to this 7-part series titled What Every Pharmacist in Canada Needs to Know About the Design and Teaching of Doctor of Pharmacy degree programs. This is part 1, the executive summary. This will be about 10 minutes long and it will be the longest of the 7 presentations. It is the pharmacy practice community that has oversight responsibility for the education of pharmacy students in Canada. The practice and academic communities cooperate in the design and teaching of Pharmd programs, but it is the practice community that controls setting of Pharmd program accreditation standards. Accordingly, it's important that all Canadian pharmacists are familiar with the evidence-based educational methods recommended for Pharmd programs. They're broken down into 5 categories. I'll describe each one of them briefly here and then devote individual episodes to them in the later parts of this series. The first is early and continuous experiential education. So what I'm talking about here are students in practice sites with their sleeves rolled up on a frequent and regular basis from the very beginning of the Pharmd program right to the very end. The second is technology-mediated learning, online learning modules in preference to classroom-based lectures. The third is learning that combines the basic and clinical sciences with humanistic studies. You can't be an effective pharmacist, you can't be an effective teacher, unless you can integrate a solid understanding of human nature into your work. Learning within this third of the educational methods refers to lifelong learning. The theme is woven through everything here. It's the pharmacy school responsibility to transition students from being dependent learners, individuals who are dependent on others telling them what they need to know, transitioning them to independent learners such that as they graduate, they are quite competent going forward through the rest of their careers, able to identify their learning needs and to act on them. Fourth of the 5 groups is individual and group application exercises, excellent methods for teaching continuous professional development skills. And the fifth is simulation, comes in many different forms and sizes, but I would give one caveat to it. It should not be used to replace experiential education. Rather, it should be used to enhance it, complement it. As an example there are some activities that students must be able to perform at the level of a fully licensed practitioner before they're put in front of patients. So, for example, over the years I've had lots of saline injected into my arms by pharmacy students engaged in their immunization certification training. Now, the methods I just described will be unfamiliar to most pharmacists from their own time in pharmacy school. And on top of that, there has been no attempt in Canada to educate the practice community about contemporary evidence-based educational methods recommended for Pharmd programs. That's a problem. You tell me, how is the practice community supposed to fulfill its oversight responsibilities for pharmacy student education if it's not familiar with the educational methods recommended for Pharmd programs? The problem is illustrated by multiple criticisms of Pharmd programs in the literature. I'll give several quotes throughout this series of presentations, and I'll start with one here, a group of faculty writing about Pharmd curriculum reform. They write, and I quote, and I'll read the quote so that I don't misspeak. They write about the difficulty which typical institutions have in transforming their Pharmd programs to take advantage of teaching innovations. End of quote. I met with a group of junior pharmacy faculty members here in Canada a few years ago at their request. And during our meeting, they described intransigence on the part of senior faculty, the professors and associate professors, to any form of Pharmd curriculum reform. It Interesting that 2/3 of the senior faculty across Canada in all of the colleges and schools of pharmacy, the professors and associate professors, 2/3 of them are not pharmacists. And it may be that those individuals see Pharmd curriculum reform as a threat to their individual areas of interest. If you want further evidence of intransigence, look no further than the Pharmd programs across Canada. The transition was made from the baccalaureate program to the Pharmd. The name of the program changed, but not necessarily very much else. To give an example of that, the educational methods that have been used to teach the Bachelor of Pharmacy degrees are still very much evident in the Pharmd programs. You have to look long and hard to find much evidence of the evidence-based methods recommended for Pharmd programs. Traditional educational methods emphasize the acquisition of knowledge and skills in school classrooms. Contemporary educational methods emphasize the application of knowledge and skills in the workplace. Competency, the ability to perform effectively and with self-confidence in the workplace, develops slowly. Accordingly, it's common sense to give simple practice-based responsibilities to students at the very start of their program, and on a frequent and regular basis, a steady diet of continuously increasing responsibilities throughout the duration of the Pharmd program. There are multiple examples of the successful integration of pharmacy students, including first-year pharmacy students, into the practice workforce. For many years, I had the responsibility of assigning over 700 students, every student in a Pharmd program, to their practice sites. And to this day, I'm extraordinarily grateful to the hundreds of volunteers who came forward and welcomed students into their practice sites and helped with their education. Early and continuous experiential education drives the learning process. Practice-based experiences are more memorable, more meaningful, and more relevant than school-based exercises. And the learning is improved if the educational methods are used in an integrated fashion. So, for example, technology-mediated learning integrates very well with experiential education. A first-year student in a pharmacy meeting for the first time with a patient with diabetes is highly motivated to learn about endocrinology. And a classmate meeting with a patient with a malignancy is highly motivated to learn about oncology. Accordingly, it's common sense to have a catalogue of online modules available to students at any time and in any order, such that they can match their practice-based learning with their didactic learning. The fact that every student completes the modules in a different order is completely immaterial. Now, in the coming episodes, I'll talk about the integration of all of the educational methods together. But I will take a few minutes here to talk about the upcoming part 2, because it's important to consider pharmacy education within the context of the challenges, the healthcare challenges facing the Canadian population. As such, the question is, what is the pharmacy profession doing to step up to the plate in the sense of addressing elements of the healthcare that they're not already doing? And how is that stepping up to the plate reflected in the education of pharmacy students? As a specific example, the care of patients with diabetes in Canada is suboptimal. Many patients do not have their blood sugars under appropriate control. So what's the profession doing about it? And what is the pharmacy profession education doing it with respect to preparing students to take on that challenge? To conclude this part 1 presentation, I'll challenge you all with a question. I'll ask you to think back to your time in pharmacy school and to ask yourself, would you have benefited if you had had the opportunity on a frequent and regular basis throughout your training to spend time in a practice setting with your sleeves rolled up? Thanks for watching. Your questions, comments, and requests for background information are welcome.